All right, Dr. Jenkins here. This is a review of the arm and forearm. Here we go. When you look at the arm, pick it up and imagine that it's yours, right? So I can imagine if I do it this way, this is a left arm, because when you do it that way, this is the palm, that's the back. When I do it this way, I can more easily see, well, if this is the case, wouldn't this be my biceps brachii? It's on the front or anterior. And then wouldn't this be the triceps brachii on the back? So don't be afraid to pick it up and imagine what it would be like on yours, right? So if I do that, this is the biceps brachii. Underneath it on both sides is the brachialis. Everyone likes the biceps brachii. Oh, it's so big and great. But what they don't realize is that underneath it is a muscle that's just as big, if not bigger. So what I'm pointing to on both sides here, underneath the biceps brachii, is the brachialis. When I flip it over then, right, the back side, posterior, we have a muscle group called the triceps brachii. It's a group of 3 muscles. We have the lateral head, because it's lateral, farthest to the outside, lateral head. The long head is right in line with the armpit, and then a teeny tiny medial head. So as a group, triceps brachii. Lateral head, long head is in line with the armpit, and the medial head is the teeny tiny one. All right, let's talk about the forearm, okay? Let's talk about the palm side. So on the palm side, we have a group called the flexors. The muscle bellies are here, and then the tendons go down into the hand. It's called the flexors because when this muscle group shortens, it will flex at my wrist. So we have the forearm flexors. So that's where I would start. Palm side, forearm flexors, which means that on the back of the hand and the forearm, posterior side, we have the extensors. Okay, extensors are on the back, flexors are on the anterior or front. All right, once you do that, now we can get more specific. Sorry, don't mind me. Let's start with the pinky side. Okay, so when I see a flexor and it's on the same side as the pinky, flexor carpi ulnaris. Isn't the ulna on the same side as the pinky? So flexor carpi ulnaris. The beginnings of the forearm muscle words are pretty similar. Flexor carpi, extensor carpi. So once you memorize that, once you get past that, you look at, is it on the pinky side or thumb side? Pinky side is always ulna. Isn't the ulna bone on the same side as the pinky? Therefore, flexors, flexor carpi ulnaris, which means that on this side, if I follow it up from the thumb, flexor carpi radialis. Isn't the radius the same side as the thumb? Flexor carpi radialis. So on the palm side are the flexors. Flexor carpi ulnaris, same side as the pinky. Flexor carpi radialis, same side as the thumb. In the middle, and it's deep, so here's one side, here's one side. Deep in the middle is the flexor digitorum, because if I follow this down, this side and this side, its tendons go to the digits. Flexor digitorum longus in the middle. Flexor carpi ulnaris pinky, flexor carpi radialis thumb, flexor digitorum in the middle because it goes to the digits. I'm getting up close with this model. On the flexor side, there's an additional muscle on top, or more superficial. Remember, the deeper one in the middle, both sides here, what my fingers are on. The deeper one in the middle is the flexor digitorum longus, but the one on top is the palmaris longus. What's interesting about the palmaris longus, if you follow it down, this is the only tendon that is outside of the carpal tunnel. This is what I call one of my stupid human tricks. So if I oppose, meaning I bring my pinky and thumb together and I slightly flex, do you see one tendon pop out? It's almost easier to do it this way, right? I bring my pinky and thumb together. It's hard to see with the way I have the camera and the sun. But bring your pinky and thumb together, slightly flex. You should see one tendon pop out. That's the palmaris longus. And the only reason we can see that is because that's the only tendon that's outside of the carpal tunnel. Okay, on the posterior side are the extensors. So now we follow the same rules. If we're talking about this side, it's the pinky side, extensor carpi ulnaris. I'm on the back of the hand, so it's extensors. If it's the same side as the pinky, extensor carpi ulnaris, which means if I'm on this side and I follow it up, extensor carpi radialis, right? Back of the hand, extensor carpi radialis. Extensor carpi radialis, extensor carpi ulnaris. It was the same on this side, it's just that on the palm side we call it the flexor. Flexor carpi ulnaris, pinky, flexor carpi radialis, thumb. Extensor carpi radialis, down here. Extensor carpi ulnaris, pinky, which means the one in the middle, folks, that goes to the digits, extensor digitorum longus. Extensor carpi radialis, extensor carpi ulnaris, extensor digitorum. Now, if we look straight up from the thumb, I'm not on the flexor side, I'm not on the extensor side directly, right up from the thumb. It's neither the extensors nor the flexors. This one right up from the thumb is called the brachioradialis. Not the flexors, not the extensors, straight up from the thumb, this one here, brachioradialis. Brachioradialis. Okay, last thing I want to introduce quickly would be the rotator cuff. These are the muscles deep in and around the shoulder, the scapula, right? Over top of this is your deltoid, your trapezius, etc., but deep. The muscles that line the scapula are called the rotator cuff. 4 muscles: sits, supraspinatus, infraspinatus, teres minor, subscapularis. Let's start on the posterior side, posterior back. Right above, this is the supraspinatus. So we're not on the front here, we're on top. Supra, I think about super being on top. Supraspinatus, infraspinatus. So the supra is on top. This is the spine of the scapula. So we're on top a little bit more towards the posterior side. Supraspinatus. Infraspinatus lines the posterior part of the scapula. Teres minor is this little one. Supraspinatus, infraspinatus, teres minor. Sit. Supra, infra, teres minor. Now be careful, because we also have a muscle down here called the teres major. Right now we're not looking at that. The teres major is not part of this rotator cuff. Supraspinatus, infraspinatus, all this, infraspinatus, teres minor. The teres major is a different muscle. As an aside, the teres major is sometimes called the little lats. Right below it will be the latissimus dorsi. and the teres major and the latissimus dorsi share the same functions. But right now, we're talking about the rotator cuff, supraspinatus, infraspinatus, teres minor, which means that on the front, anterior side, palm side, would be the subscapularis, lines the front of the scapula. Not this one, this is separate. This one here, subscapularis. Supraspinatus, infraspinatus, teres minor, subscapularis. All right, folks, happy studying.